Remember Dolly Combs? She hired a roofer who advertised in the newspaper to fix a leak over her back room. Ricky Beasley fixed that leak and guaranteed it for 3 years. However, when the rains came, Dolly says Beasley left her with a whole new set of roof leaks. But Ricky Beasley was nowhere to be found, so she could not get him to honor his 3-year guarantee. I went to his home and found that Beasley and his wife had separated. He was in Texas somewhere. She and the children were here on welfare. Robert C. Harris, a builder in Edmond, saw that story and said he wanted to help out by having Dolly Combs' roof fixed and donate some goods to help out Mrs. Beasley and her children as well. Harris sent his brother, Sammy Harris, and Rodney Fash out to begin work. Sammy said Ricky Beasley had not shingled the roof correctly and water collected under the new roofing. Well, Sammy was right. When he punched a hole in the new roof, water squirted out. Robert C. Harris said they would take care of that free just to help out Dolly and her husband, who were out $283 at Christmas time. Well, Janie Bordeo, 3 weeks overdue, finally delivered her baby at Oklahoma Memorial Hospital. A brand new baby boy was born last week. She'll name him Keith Donald. A viewer contributed some baby clothes, diapers, and a car seat for the new baby, and I took them to Janie this morning in the hospital. She hopes to take her new baby home this week, and thanks to many of our viewers, Janie will have a warm apartment to take the new baby home to. One of Janie's neighbors, Bob Garcia, had called In Your Corner to explain that Janie's gas had been shut off when her bills had accumulated. Someone had turned her gas on illegally and the meter had been taken out. She had no heat and no way to cook for her 5 children, except for a single-burner electric hot plate. Well, viewers donated $500 to get the gas turned back on. Other viewers donated food and toys to help Janie Bordeo and her family celebrate Christmas, a family which has now expanded to 6 children. I dropped in to visit the Richardson family today, Howard and Florence and their 4 children. Howard is 72 years old, but has been unable to work for several years, he complained, because of his deteriorating health. One of his lungs is bad, he says, and he has heart and stomach problems. His wife Florence also has heart problems now, and just keeping up with the medicine bills takes a large part of Howard's Social Security.
Well, sir, Yana, I'm just going to tell you and explain it the best way I can. This is the whole story. I've been just might near this way for the last, I'd say 42 years. And I can get out of once in a while for the longest and do a little something, but now I'm plumb helpless.
Howard says he suffered several strokes and must depend on welfare and food stamps to feed his children. For all 6, Florence says they get about $700 a month in welfare to eat and pay rent, and that's it.
What are the prospects now for Christmas? Are you able to do anything for Christmas?
Well, it's just about average, just to have what we can manage for, and that's it. And what we can get, and we enjoy life anyhow, you know what I mean? We don't go out and worry a whole lot over it because we've been here a long time and we know it's hard to get along.
Well, we know the Lord is going to provide a way for us, too.
We'll.
Because, we try to have a Christian home.
Yeah.
I mean, we try to, live for Jesus.
So we
I know
all
we'll make it.
Yeah.
Together and getting along fairly good, and you know what I mean, as well as possible. We're proud of it. Very proud.
Sure.
The Richardsons' 4 children range in age from 14 up to 17 and are not looking forward to anything special for Christmas. The oldest son is looking for work now to help out the family. But in the meantime, In Your Corner heard again this year from Dan King of Cimarron Programming, who wanted to help out the Richardson. Dan King contributed $500, which we converted into a shopping spree at the AMC Shopping Center. The Richardsons can shop for their medicine, food, and clothing there to help brighten up these holidays. And we gave them $20 in cash from the luncheon ladies at the Surrey Hill School, who also wanted to help out. $20 doesn't go too far nowadays, but one thing it might do is The job market has not been a rosy picture for many in the Oklahoma City area lately. Patricia Thompson told me she was hoping to find work soon. She'd been laid off since May, and she's raising 5 children, hers and her sister's. Now her water has been cut off, and she's hoping to get that back on by Christmas, but she needs some help.
I lost my job in May of this year, and I've been seeking employment ever since. Okay, the unemployment that I get, it barely, it helps me, but it doesn't help me enough. And this year I'm just not going to be able to have a Christmas for my children.
Pat said they went to the country and she chopped down a Christmas tree herself. But right now they have nothing to put on it or under it while she's trying to get her utilities caught up and feed the children.
The water's been off for 2 weeks. And my mother is lending me the balance in order to get the water turned on sometime today.
I see. What about your gas and electric? Do you have to pay that also?
Okay, I just finished paying $167 light bill, and we have a butane stove. We use butane because of the mix-up in the gas bill, and they say that I owe them so much and I can't afford to pay them.
Yeah.
Pat says the job market is tough these days, but she's still looking.
I've just been going different places trying to seek employment since.
It's pretty frustrating.
Yes, to hear them say, no, well, we don't have anything, well, you're not qualified enough for it, and you don't have enough school for it. But all of my jobs I've learned, I've been employed to do one thing and end up doing something else anyway. So I'm just seeking employment.
What about the kids? Are they getting a little worried about Christmas time here, bugging you a little bit?
Yes, they're about to drive me crazy.
Well, Tom Fenimore of the Colonel Corn Company pitched in to help one more time this Christmas on In Your Corner. He contributed $200 for Pat to use for utility bills, food, and some Christmas gifts for the children. Pat was very surprised to receive it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Will that help you buy some Christmas gifts or anything?
It'll help me buy gifts, and I'll buy some groceries.
All right.
But mostly I'll buy some gifts.
Yeah, get something for those kiddies.
Yeah, so they'll hush.
Okay, well, we hope that'll help out a little bit.
Just thank you all. We appreciate it. 3 of them children are mine.
Huh?
We appreciate it.
Oh,
3 of them
that's
children are mine.
Well, that's fine. We
Thank
just hope
you.
it helps out a little bit here at
Thank
Christmas
you.
time.
God bless y'all. Merry Christmas.
You bet.
Thank you. We couldn't have made it without you all. And thank you.
In Your Corner started out 1982 with a real battle trying to get $9,000 returned to Janine Brandon. Janine was divorced, had 2 children, and a job at the Alpha Mud Company. She lent Alpha Mud $9,000, which they promised on paper to return with interest. It took almost a month to get Janine's money back, but they finally handed it over. Well, January's cold weather broke the water pipes at Marie Bridgman's cat shelter. In Your Corner got her a supply of water donated by the Eureka Water Company, enough for 250 cats.
My plumber said that they could possibly be broken. The pipes could be broken. So if we run into that, we'll have some real problems.
Incidentally, Marie is having knee surgery soon and needs volunteers to help take care of the cats. Remember Georgetta Smith? She was almost blind, epileptic, and had scoliosis. Georgetta lived with her puppy in a bug and mouse-infested room in an apartment house about to be renovated. She had to move, but had nowhere to go. We finally arranged through the welfare department to have her taken to a boarding house where food and medical care would be available to help Georgetta. Another project last January was to help Missy Peck, a 6-year-old leukemia victim in Mustang. Missy had a relapse and needed her mother to be home to take her to the hospital for treatment and to care for her, but her divorced mother had to work. Graham Central Station helped In Your Corner by holding a fundraiser. That money, plus funds raised by Reverend Colmia's Church in Mustang and donations from several oil companies, raised $5,134, enabling Missy's mother to stay home while doctors worked to get Missy's leukemia into remission.
We hope that this will alleviate a lot of your worries and problems, and we want to help you as much, and we're happy to help you as much as we could on this.
Thank you, I sure appreciate it. It's unreal. I never expected this much.
Brad Garton of Norman had a different kind of problem. He took his car in for repairs and thought he saw it again later on the street.
I was driving to a movie up in Oklahoma City, and there was a wrecked green rabbit, and I said, that looks like my car. And, you know, I said, but it can't be, it's in the shop. So we went ahead and went to the movie, and the following day or the following Monday, I went in to pay the bill for my car and was told that my car had been wrecked.
The garage agreed to get Brad's car repaired, but finally sent it to another shop, and at last word, Brad got the money from the garage for the repairs and then traded in that car. Well, we called it the Lion in Winter story when Glenda Harlow called to complain that her 2 children had to walk to school past a yard with lions in it. The owners tried to show us the cub lions would not hurt anybody. As it turned out, there were complaints the owners were hurting the lions by not giving them the proper diet and living conditions. They finally had to give them up. In Your Corner was called by personnel of the Harbinger's House, an organization that aids women alcoholics. Everyone there had been asked to save cigarette wrappers that they could redeem to buy time on a kidney dialysis machine for a young boy who needed the treatments at the Midwest City Hospital. In Your Corner could find no such boy and no such program. We traced the scheme to a resident at a senior citizen's home where everyone was saving wrappers, and then we traced it to a woman who started the cigarette wrapper collection. She said she thought she was helping someone, but never would explain where she got the idea or who the boy was that needed help. The Kidney Foundation told us this was a cruel scheme of unknown origin that pops up around the country from time to time, but there is no program to trade cigarette packages for kidney dialysis treatment. The winter of '82 ended with In Your Corner looking into a roof spraying scam. A Bethany senior citizen said he was approached by some men to spray his roof to leak-proof it for 25 years. They kept raising the price during the job until it went from $75 to $250. Clifton found out about the scam in time to cancel his check. He also got a license number, which I traced to a gypsy camp in Spiro, Oklahoma. The gypsies allegedly were ripping off people all over the city, spraying roofs with watered-down aluminum paint. We even found one buying the paint, but they work on the edge of the law, had false IDs, and were difficult to trace. In Your Corner found them later in the year, as we'll see when we continue In Your Corner Year in Review tomorrow. I'm Brad Edwards, In Your Corner. In Your Corner began springtime with a frustrating problem. I heard from Carolyn Yeager, a courageous woman who was trying to help herself but needed some help from welfare. Carolyn's eyes were both artificial after operations failed to restore her vision. She was divorced and the bills were piling up. She had signed up for food stamps, but they never came through. In Your Corner learned there had been a computer error at the welfare department. Carolyn's food stamps were mailed out immediately. Also in April, In Your Corner helped Dan Heinen, who may have been the last person to get a refund from Braniff Airlines before it went out of business. Heinen had signed up for a special air rate to Reno for a ski trip. But there was no record of his return flight, so he was stranded there. He had to pay out of his own pocket for a trip home. I checked with Braniff. They found the error and refunded Dan's $145. One of the many times the business community helped In Your Corner help others came when I heard from Geraldine Elder. She was unable to work while recovering from foot operations, but she had no support while recuperating. L.D. Parsons of Parsons Wholesale Meats donated a large bag of beef, pork, and chicken to help Geraldine while we worked on finding assistance for her. One of the scams In Your Corner looked into last spring was the Easy credit card ripoff. Bob Brady in Moore brought it to my attention. He showed us advertisements offering to help anyone get a MasterCard or Visa credit card even if they had bad credit. All you had to do was send them $10 or so and they'd tell you how. We learned from the Postal Inspector's office that most of those offers were fraudulent. Monty Buchanan called In Your Corner this spring for help with the IRS. His tax refund had been returned to the Treasury Department, and Monty and his wife needed that money. Monty had filed 2 forms to get his refund, but still nothing. He thought he had to have more W-2 forms to send with the papers. I checked and found that he didn't. The IRS rushed his papers through, so Monty got his refund just in time to pay off a loan he had taken out when his refund didn't show up. Also in the spring, In Your Corner was called into a case of sexual harassment. Oftentimes, it's hard to prove and hard to stop, but very hard to live with. Kim Hamilton said she was being harassed verbally at her job at a feed plant. She couldn't get it stopped. In Your Corner learned the Women's Resource Center in Norman advises victims on what to do. And a federal agency, the EEOC, will investigate reports of harassment. At last report, Kim says she lost her job over the amount of sick leave she took. Paula Quinton said she too was a victim, not of harassment, but of false arrest. She said her name was mixed up with a similar name, the result being she was arrested for passing a bad check at a grocery store she never shopped in. Paula was arrested at home in front of her family and jailed for a couple of days. Now she wanted it off her record since it was a mistake. In Your Corner found a clerical error had been made in the DA's office. It was found, but they had forgotten to issue a recall on the arrest, so Paula went to jail. However, the arrest was not kept in the records. In Your Corner also learned last spring that asking a friend to work on your car can lead to difficulties, as Arthur Rollins of Noble, Oklahoma discovered. He was having a new engine installed in his pickup truck at the Box Garage in Wayne. Arthur said there was no big hurry, but this was getting ridiculous.
Was to give him $500 when I took the pickup down there, which I have a receipt for, and that was August 19th, 1980. And he still has my truck, and you know, I just can't get him to work on it.
And what did Jerry Box think? Well, he thought he could take as long as he wanted.
Something like that is something that it's a mood type to me. It's like a hobby. I work on it when I want to.
Well, that was the spring of '82. Tomorrow, the long, hot summer. I'm Brad Edwards, In Your Corner. Richard White told me in December he was driving north on Pennsylvania. At the intersection with Northwest 39th Street, he entered the left turn lane. And he says when the light changed, he turned left on the green arrow and made a U-turn. Well, soon after he noticed the flashing lights behind him, it was a police officer.
I was pulled over for a illegal U-turn. And I was notified by the police officer that's what it was. I told him that I did not know that I could not make a U-turn there since I had a green arrow.
Well, Richard said the intersection was not marked no U-turn, so he assumed it was okay, and he decided to go to traffic court to fight the charge. But then he noticed the charge on the ticket was not for an illegal U-turn, but for disregarding a signal light, something he thought he didn't do. At his arraignment in court, Richard tried to explain he thought his ticket had the wrong violation stated.
The judge would not let me explain that I was pulled over for another reason.
What happened when you tried to explain?
Well, he became very irritated and was threatening to throw me out of court and fine me for, contempt of court.
Okay, so ultimately, did you have to pay a fine or post bond, or what happened?
No, I was very lucky. He let me go on my own recognizance about a bond, and I'm supposed to appear the 18th of this month.
Well, a court official explained to Richard that at an arraignment, you only plead guilty or not guilty to the charge. The rest you explain at your hearing. And Richard says he will appear at his hearing to at least straighten out the charges. And Richard's unemployed now and can't really afford to pay a fine for a ticket. He says that's all the more reason everybody should know the law regarding U-turns. We found quite a few were not familiar with the law.
When you come up to an intersection, do you know when you can make a U-turn?
Yeah, when the traffic gives the right of way to the oncoming traffic. If there's no traffic coming, you can make a U-turn. If there's traffic coming, you can't.
In the middle of the street, it's against the law, and where it's posted, it's against the law.
Do you know when you can make a U-turn here?
No. When do you make a U-turn? When do you make a U-turn?
Well, I got a copy of the ordinance at the city clerk's office, and as of the end of 1974, you cannot make a U-turn in Oklahoma City at any intersection that has a traffic signal or a sign that says no U-turn. Apparently, the only way you can make a U-turn in Oklahoma City is at an unmarked intersection or at an intersection that says U-turns permitted. So remember, if you see this sign or a traffic light at the intersection, better not make a U-turn. Jim Pruitt is now living at the home of his deceased grandfather, who had had some plumbing work done in December before his death. Jim told me he thought his grandfather was overcharged for the work that was done. His grandfather found an ad in the buyer's guide for a company called Courtesy Plumbing that offered a 20% discount to senior citizens and guaranteed their work. The plumbers gave an estimate for $150 according to their scratch pad bill, but the total came to $270. Jim said the work they did was replace the trap under the kitchen sink, but they told his grandfather he needed new faucets, so that was an extra $72. The men also fixed the trap under the bathroom sink, which Jim thought was included in the $150 estimate, but that was an extra $48. They went through the wall in an adjoining bedroom to get at the bathroom pipes and left a hole there, which Jim found when he moved a dresser. He also found a leak in the drain pipe underneath the house. It looked like a puncture that water was leaking out of. Jim said he called Courtesy Plumbing and talked to Steve Smith about it.
And when I called the guy and told him about it, he said, oh, we'll come out and solder that and fix that for you. He said he probably just missed it when he ran his snake down through there. You know, he said he probably snaked it from down there in the basement. Well, they never made an effort to come out here. 3 times I've stayed home from work, and I make pretty good money myself, and I have to stay home from work, or she has to one of us has to be here for them to come in.
Right.
And so.
So to this day, they've never come back to.
They've never came back, and every time we call them, they say, well, the last time I called them, they said that they'd subbed the work out to somebody else, and that they weren't responsible no longer.
Jim said Steve Smith told him he had subcontracted the job to a man named Jeff Smith, but Jim couldn't get anyone to come out, so I tried to contact Courtesy Plumbing myself, which turned out to be difficult. Neither Courtesy Plumbing nor Steve Smith had a business listing in the phone book, nor with information. Their advertised phone number had been changed, and no one at the new number knew anything about Courtesy Plumbing, even though Jim claims he talked to Courtesy Plumbing's secretary at that new number earlier in the day. However, I found Steve Smith's home number. The lady answering that phone said Steve would be home later this evening. She, too, did not know the address of where he worked. Soon after, Jeff Smith called back and said the reason he didn't go back to Pruitt's home is because Jim had threatened him, he claimed. But he said to clear this all up, he would call Jim and make arrangements to go back and fix the leak. Suzanne Heflin, a college student at OU, called about the mix-up. A mix-up that she thought was going to lead to her arrest, and she didn't know why. Suzanne had done some designing for a company last summer and received a check for $500, which she deposited in her account at the Allied Bank. She said the check bounced, so she deposited the check again and received a ticket from the bank showing the check was credited to her account July 30th. Well, it wasn't until October 12th, 2.5 months later, she got an overdraft statement. She says she called about it.
They said they realized that it was their mistake, but I spent the money, and so I was responsible for it. The man at the bank did say that any time that your account is credited for money does not mean that there's money there. And I said, well, in a case like that, then no one should feel free to write a check. And, of course, he didn't have any comment about that.
Suzanne says she received a notice in December showing the $500 marked charged off. She thought she was cleared of paying until she heard from a collection agency.
The man said he was from the bank and that he had a warrant for my arrest. And then he got a hold of me and asked if I would pay it voluntarily. I said no, and he said, well, then we'll see what will happen, you know.
Well, I checked with officials of the Allied Oklahoma Bank to see what had happened here. They say apparently Suzanne had mailed in the check without a deposit slip, so they didn't have her checking account number. Now, on the back of the check, under Suzanne's signature, she had used her Social Security number for identification, which confused the bank. A teller apparently took the last digits of the Social Security number and matched it up with another checking account number, so the check went into the wrong account to begin with. Then the bank sent the check in to collect payment and see if it was good. Well, in the meantime, they discovered the error and deposited the check in Suzanne's account on July 30th. It was after that that the check came back marked insufficient. So first of all, the Allied Bank had to notify and clear up the mess with the first account the check went into, the wrong account. Then, for Suzanne's benefit, they ran the check through again to see if it would pay off at that time. Once again, the check comes back marked insufficient funds. Then they had to notify Suzanne, and 2.5 months later, Suzanne received an overdraft statement after she had spent the money thinking it was in her account. In December, they sent her a charged-off statement with $500 on it. She assumed that meant her account was clear to the $500. The charged-off actually meant the account had been turned over to a collection agency. I asked the Oklahoma Bankers Association attorney if a customer could be held responsible after 2.5 months of thinking the money was in their account.
It would be usual that it would be a more quick response than that, and there may be some fact that I'm not aware of with regard to why it took a longer period, remembering again that they had no obligation to try to clear that check for her again, and rather than giving her the credit at that time, when they saw that it was a non-sufficient check, could have simply assessed it against her account at that time.
Now, the OBA speaks on behalf of banks. They say Allied acted properly, but the State Department of Banking says there are time limits a check can be held. Perhaps Suzanne's bank held it too long, or perhaps the bank where the check was sent for collection held it too long. I found Jim and Peggy Berry living in a camper at a campground north of the city. Rather cramped quarters for a family with 5 children, one of which has cerebral palsy. But the quarters are still better than the tent they had lived in previously. The Oklahoma Christian Apartments in Edmond notified In Your Corner about the Berry family. The senior citizens at the apartments had sort of adopted the Berries, helping them through the holidays, providing clothing for the 5 children, taking care of them when they were ill. Jim and Peggy came from New York in the Buffalo area, thinking Jim had a job with an oil company here, but their dream became nightmarish when they arrived. The job fell through, but their luck changed and Jim found another job in Norman, leaving them with another problem.
We need housing.
And yet, why haven't you been able to find it? What have you been up against?
High rent. The first and last month, and plus the deposit.
Yeah.
You know, and living here is just impossible to save a. You know, we live from week to week here. We just make it here.
Peggy and Jim figured they might be able to get ahead a little if Jim didn't have to drive to work so far. But finding an apartment or a house in Norman is tough. It's a tight rental market. It's even tougher finding one that will accept 5 children. Just for the camper, they pay $90 a week plus buying propane gas. They need to get therapy for 7-year-old Troy with cerebral palsy. Food stamps are helping them to get by right now.
I know that my husband and I have sat down and tried to figure out a budget, and boy, we stuck to it, and every time we got a little bit ahead, something happened. A part on the truck, you know, needed replacing, and you know, just different things.
And Peggy says living in the cramped conditions is affecting the family and the children's health.
I like Oklahoma, and I wasn't disenchanted with him or the kids or anything. It was cabin fever. But I think it's the tent and the trailer, and it's hot and cold. I mean, severe hot and cold.
Sure.
Peggy and Jim have been searching for a home or apartment for months now, not only in Norman, but in Purcell and other area towns close to Norman. But either the rent was too high or there were restrictions on children. Well, In Your Corner began a search today and have already found a possibility in a mobile home park, but the search will continue.